Hello, everybody. So, if TikTok is vape and Instagram Reels are cigarettes, Facebook Shorts must be like huffing paint. Just awful. I'm pretty sure RFK Jr. is high functioning autistic. He puts absolutely insane things in his body on the regular. That's likely decimated his gut biome. Thinking you can cheat with supplements is a surefire way of giving yourself severe issues by distorting your gut biome. And your gut biome is very foundational for the rest of your health, from physical health to mental health. Very, very, very important. And anybody who thinks that they can take supplements to shortcut or cheat will end up in a worse position in the long run than they were when they started. And that's that. And regardless of how physically fit RFK actually is, which he is, his mind isn't operating properly. It's not firing on all cylinders. I've known high functioning autistic people who work out very frequently and are very strong. I've known them personally. I've seen them work out. I've worked out with them. Like Null, no sane and rational person could be a Zionist in the year of our Lord 2025. I'm seeing complete normies turn away from that stuff and starting to notice things and starting to look and check that early life section more and more. Just regular, normal people, which is one of the reasons why the goals of the Zionists were force our country into a war with Iran, a long, contracted war to destroy what's left of our country after spending the last 30 years melting it down into paste with drugs, pimpery, musical and television, and recently internet programming, and a variety of different things, all stemming from a realization that, oh my God, they actually pulled it off and nobody stopped them when the Kennedy assassination happened, and then they started to put into work using their buddy HW. How are they going to make a false flag attack so that we can go to war with Iraq? And that ended up being 9/11. And after 9/11, Israel started training our police more because they were already doing that in pilot programs through the 80s and 90s. Thank you, HW Bush. Roasting in hell right now. Roasting in hell right now. Regardless, as an autistic person, you could be unable to grasp the social cues everyone else is putting down regarding the hatred they feel towards these people. And you might think that because the censorship prevents people from safely criticizing Israel, safely being an operative word there, that people actually like Israel, which they don't. Imagine the disappointment RFK's ancestors would feel if they could see RFK simping for the people that killed them. Because naturally, RFK Sr. with JFK had plans on excising the American Zionist Council, which then turned into AIPAC after some weird, being able to skirt tax law stuff dried up on that account. They started another account and take advantage of tax law and get subsidies. The biggest welfare queens have consistently been the people that use lawyers to get as many subsidies as possible. People like Null who, actually complain about being in America, they lost their $100,000 tax deduction. Parasites like that, that's an extension of USAID, is the ability to give people $100,000 tax rebates or whatever the heck, deductions for being an expat. So basically, he actually complained about paying taxes to the United States, but basically all of his taxes were waived completely. He didn't have to pay any. Nobody was auditing his Bitcoin stuff, through, and his other coins. He was a fan of a variety of different coins. Ripple, I think, was one of the big ones. Hopefully not Ethereum. Ethereum's the one that's really tied into like Peter Thiel and Swiss banking and stuff like that. Bitcoin, I have homies into Bitcoin. Bitcoin meant something back in the day. It really, really did. It's not, people aren't just saying that. Bitcoin really meant something back in the day. It was the maverick currency. I also think it's insanely funny that neo-Nazi groups are often funded by Israel. Neo-Nazis are great for false flags. In fact, the Idaho shooting took place by a neo-Nazi's son. This is a reality. Apparently, this guy with a bunch of neo-Nazi tattoos, runes, other stuff, consistent. Well, actually, one of his, no, it was a patch. So, poser patches, Nazi tattoos, so it's just like, well, what exactly was going on there? It seems like he was in Nazi groups, but he wasn't blooded into Nazi biker gangs. That seems to be what it is. And by the way, the Hells Angels are really big in absorbing neo-Nazis from, they get out of jail, they can't find Aryan brothers, and so they go into the Hells Angels. Stuff like that. I'm pretty sure they're not the most Nazi of the biker gangs, though. There are more intensely Nazi biker gangs, and ones that actually stand for more than just being a group that attracts people with lowest common denominator propaganda in order to sell drugs for the CIA, which is exactly what both the Hells Angels on the right and the Grateful Dead on the left were doing all throughout the 70s to destroy the homesteading movement that the hippies were originally creating, and turning it into sex, drugs, rock and roll. This exact same thing would happen on a wider scale after that petri dish was tested for quality testing, and then it was induced into the regular population through the Clinton administration. Clinton, mind you, taking most of his legislation on the Lolita Express, a plane that Noel would probably very much like to travel on one day, although he'd probably prefer to travel on the Catboy Shotokan Express. Anyways, it's super funny that he's arguing with VTubers on shitter right now. Oh boy. And neo-Nazis can also be the ugly girl that the mean girl uses to look better by contrast. That's how Israelis can do that. Oh, I didn't clarify. The Idaho firefighter shooter was the son of a neo-Nazi. And he was a Hapa, which is super funny. So, like, his mother must have been some sort of an Asian, like, mail-order bride, which is super funny. Saving the white race by ordering Asian mail-order brides. Super funny. Super, super funny. Neo-Nazis are great for false flags and to be the ugly girl, but there's also the important term to learn that I try to teach people all the time, which is anthroposophy, not to be confused with anthropology, which is the real study of actual physical science of race. Anthroposophy is the mystical religion of race, and this is where Aryanism is derived. Theosophy Foundation started from stuff that Madame Blavatsky got from Freemasonic book clubs. Theosophy into anthroposophy into Ariosophy. Ariosophy is where Aryanism is derived. Guido von List and another guy who can't remember. Guido von List looked like the one who was actually physically into it. His heart was into it. The other guy didn't look like his heart was into it, so I just hand-waved that guy away. Guido von List, a fascinating, interesting person. The real guy who brought the runes to the SS and to the neo-Nazi groups. They always have little rune tattoos on them. Which sucks. It sucks. Imagine literally, like, being young, getting induced into neo-Nazi groups, getting tattoos, permanent tattoos. And if they're not permanent, you have pictures that will be permanent of you with those tattoos. And then you find out that, no, this is literally all these groups. Every last one of them are specifically there so that Mossad can continue to spy on your country and have operative power over these groups, because their entire mission statement and job is to hunt down Nazi groups. And in America, they're allowed to do whatever they want and then have the police and the CIA's blessing. So imagine learning all of that and then learning all the history and all the ups and downs and, how Hitler was a quarter Jewish, yada, yada, yada. Imagine learning all of that, and now you got neo-Nazi tattoos on you. The thing is, a lot of these people don't have coming to Jesus moments because I think they're specifically selected because they're stupid. Specifically selected because they're stupid. The stupid propaganda of you're good because of your race. That allows the stupidest, weakest people to just check out right there and go, I'm great. And then they get into, like, steroid abuse and, working out so that you can fantasize punching somebody who also is fantasizing punching you, and at the end of the day, like, we have guns, we've had swords, pole arms for the longest time. Why are you fantasizing about punching anybody? What are you, a child? What is this, a playground? Like, really, it's stupidity. It's just, that's all it is. Thankfully, we live in a world with internet, you know? And anthroposophy is the belief some ancient people had regarding their tribe that book clubs in the 1800s used as sentiment to divide and conquer people based on race. And we have the internet now, and we can study these terms, and we can share this wisdom. Otherwise, we would be genuinely barreling headlong into another world war. Just as this sentiment led humanity in the 1900s, after a while of priming that. You know, I genuinely, personally, unironically do believe that if Abraham Lincoln wasn't assassinated, a tremendous amount of things wouldn't have gone such a horrible way, frog boiling the entire human population into doing the terrible things that they did to Germany during World War I, and Persia in World War I, like terrible things that happened to Bulgaria. Although communists, you know, it's complicated because, you know, it's true that a lot of the babushkas in communist societies, they kept the faith alive, but they kept it hidden in secret. And they you know, they'd have a closet that they could unlock with a key, and then there'd be icons in there, and then they'd pray there. So it's hard to say if communists have souls or not. Atheists, people who choose to be atheists, are people who willingly obscure their conscience, their consciousness from their souls. And you can be a good atheist and you can be a bad atheist, but ultimately all you're boiled down to is materialism. You know, give me the proof in my hand. Well, you can't see air, but you believe you can breathe, don't you? Whatever, man, whatever. You know, people didn't believe in bacteria until we could see them, so it's just like, what if one of these days we find out scientifically that God is real, and there's a provable metric that we can tell with new science? What will atheists have to say then? Probably some newfangled form of self-worship and mysticism, a theosophically derived, special snowflake, new age mysticism, new age mysticism, New York, Mars colony, doing new Kundalini yoga. Oh, well. I'm getting a little silly. I got back into watching Russell Brand recently. That guy is so silly. He's so silly. He means well. I've always known that he means well. I just got super upset when he sold out, you know, playing little games, advertising junk, garbage, mystical nonsense, while pretending to be a Christian. Now that hurts. That's what hurts so bad about Noel. Pretending to be a Christian. He's selling Zionism. It doesn't matter. Ted Kaczynski would say that the people who think that having like 2 million views on Twitter, which X has been shown, and I think Twitter even before, although who knows how like insanely connected Jack Dorsey made that crap, because it was connected to ISIS, it was connected to cartels, connected all over the place. But X, run by our special boy, is botted, heavily botted, heavily botted. And to think that, oh wow, this is doing numbers on a place like TikTok or on a place like X, is to not only be what Ted Kaczynski would describe as an over-socialized male, which is people who have their worth derived from attention as if they were females, and, you know, put a lot of sway on simple metrics instead of pragmatic realities. But they would also be fools, because they would be falling for the bot ruse. Oh. Really, really, really disappointed to learn that beloved, useful, awesome Kiwi Farms, at least he was acting like very intelligent and useful and handy. Kiwi Farms mod, useful mistake, is apparently into Lolicon. Now, I'm not sure if this is a gay op or not. He hasn't responded. That's always concerning. You have to respond to these things and say, no, that wasn't. Otherwise, your silence is an indication that you are more afraid of engaging than than you are of defending yourself. Like, really? What in the hell, man? Really? Oh. What is the connection between bullying retards and liking child porn? Chat. Chat. What is the connection, chat? Seriously, though, it's retards all the way down. It's retards bullying retards. Like, come on, guys. God, read a book! If I was allowed to continue exercising influence over Null, that is, before attacks on me ramped up in December 2022, donations on his stream related to me in concerted campaigns and gay ops, I would have endeavored to ensure that I would have continued to pull Null away from this. I didn't just defend Null against these myriad accusations for years, which I did. Swear to God. I actively endeavored to ensure that he wouldn't lapse back into those behaviors ever again. And I can tell you, I think I failed. I think I failed. Nobody would say those things. And who cares about children? You would never, ever want Israel to wage like a torture, murder, sex trafficking operation on allies like Jordan, on Iran, naturally on Palestine. You would never say those things if you cared at all about children. Children can't consent to religion. So what you're saying is pure evil, and you're projecting the people that have called you pedophiles for decades, brother. You are projecting that onto Muslims. 2 billion people. 1.5 billion people. You are projecting your sins onto 1.5 billion people. And you should be ashamed for that. It should make you sick. It should give you bad dreams. But there is something so utterly self-defeating in Josh's psyche, and there's nothing anyone can do about it but himself. And I don't see his current lifestyle leading to a genuine come-to-Jesus, check my ego at the door moment anytime soon. Go, my golem! Go and undermine white society to the extreme! I will, thank you, Daddy. I maintain that Ralph is probably the most successful person in the sector. Based on the mission statement of the sector, he generates Kino. So many mimetic Ralph moments for years. To, wait a minute, Matt, no! No! To, suffer, horse! To, you ain't gonna talk to me like that, to the gunt, to the thumb, all of it. Like, I could go on and on and on and on. When it comes to what the sector's about, he is a generator. And I've always prided myself on being a generator, somebody that generates more energy than is given into them. Always. That's always been a goal. That's allows you to actually work in things like the medical field without getting burned out. And I have worked in the medical field before. I've been in hospital housekeeping systems before because of my charges and weed convictions. I can't serve in EMT, most hospitals. I haven't looked into it recently, but from what I remember looking into it, because I did want to be an EMT. First, I wanted to be a firefighter, then I wanted to be an EMT. Now I'm considering being a firefighter again, but I have injuries on my body. I have a hernia that hasn't dehisced, so it's like an injury in my diaphragm. I have an injury in my diaphragm up here. My broken ankle is doing perfectly fine. I can run on it just fine. I wanted to be a firefighter, but I really don't think I'm strong enough. Like, those guys are some really, really strong people. Although I do know somebody who was a firefighter, and he could actually hook me up with, like, volunteering and helping out. Just helping out, You don't have to be a heavy lifter. As long as you're helping out, But yeah, I wanted to be an EMT after that. I talked to some EMTs. I learned that you can't even return a book late and be an EMT. They're really strict about that. And that's one of the many, many things strangling our medical system. But, like, spend time with people in the medical system. They're so sweet. They're so nice. They're so giving. They're so helpful. They're generators. Now, going back to Ralph. Ralph is a generator. It sucks. I don't like seeing him on Xanax. I don't like seeing him heavily drunk. That's not cool. That's not what real generators do. But what he does is he outputs a tremendous amount of Kino that's fun to watch and fun to comment on. He creates the lifeblood of many an economy online. Oh. Most others just observe in their cuck chairs and laugh. I know, I'm guilty too. And right now, Null is busy virtue signaling about VTubers. Oh wow, that's so helpful. You're really gonna convince the world that you're a great person. Your torchlight's the way! Like his statement, lolicon is pedophilia. It's like saying concentration camps are evil. No shit, Sherlock. Everybody knows what an echo chamber is and how the people in them behave, okay? We've spent enough time on the internet to know that. Everybody. But that does not make up for the fact that Joshua Connor Moon watched homosexual, hurtcore anime child porn. Hurtcore. That means they were being tortured. Him ever talking about Nick Fuentes is the pot calling the kettle the N-word. Nick Fuentes is into young boys wearing cat ears. Null is into watching young boys wearing cat ears and getting tortured. Okay? And that's a fact. I'd put my hand on the Bible and swear that before a court. I can rest easy saying that because it's true, and I don't think based on his current actions and behavior. I thought for a while he was behaving really good. And, like, he allowed his isolation in more, like, isolated communities that, like, you get kicked out of YouTube, you gotta actually work on it, you know? It's not super easy to get kicked out of YouTube. It's not like old Twitter, you know, where it's a snuggle club for only people who have the same opinion. You get kicked out of YouTube, you're saying the N-word, I watched you do it, you know, with hard R and with contempt in your heart, and you weren't quoting anybody, and it's just like, yeah, bro, you allowed yourself to slip up. You said a genuine curse word. If you said the F word around, like, ritzy old people at a party, you'd probably get kicked out too. Duh. Does that mean all those ritzy old people at that party are bad people? You'd have to count them out individually to find out. Okay? It's called rules. I know you creepy anarcho-capitalists, you lolbertarians that are super into things like cryptocurrency and black market drugs and child porn. I know you people think that borders and rules don't apply to you and that the only reason that, like, nations exist is because of bloodshed and war. You freaks, you evil creeps, you monsters, you banes on society, you plagues, you poxes, you cancers. But that's not the case. Most people think you're a freak, and that's exactly why you're stuck in the septic reclamation tank of the internet. You deal with the internet's raw sewage, and you work very hard in turning it into some little tiny scrap of edible something. You work in a septic reclamation tank. You know, the manatees in Florida Springs and the redwood groves in California are probably the single most attractive things to go and observe and look at in America. To unlike looking at a castle in Ireland, you can actually go into the springs. You can go into the redwood groves. You know what I'm saying? You think Disneyland and Disney World were built with this in mind? I think so. It could have been. Makes sense. I wonder what the Mall of Minnesota was built in mind. Probably the fact that they have more lawyers than people. Anyways, we probably actually are going to need a new Nuremberg trials at this rate. When the U.S. crashes out completely and the concentration camps we build are using slave labor to produce cheap goods for the war effort until its inhabitants are worked to the bone and killed, when President DeSantis is in the Fuhrer bunker with Casey popping sugar pills to go into diabetic shock, we actually will need some form of major arbitration to bring accountability to the people who built and maintained and operated and kidnapped people to put into torture camps on U.S. soil. Down to the faggots that poured the foundation on these places. I think they should all face the gallows of the firing squad, personally. Seriously, though. Why do we keep letting ultra-rich Jews trick us into thinking being evil is a factor of white culture? Why does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? Oh, and I'm sorry for insulting Novus Ordo Catholics a few streams ago, even though the criticism is based in truth and representing those abused who have no recourse to real justice. It's incredibly unfair and straight up dastardly to lump all Novus Ordo Catholics into that. I apologize. I was upset at Null, and I whittled that down to its barest nub and have presented its point. And I retract that carpet bomb of an insult. I apologize. Funny how I've completely stopped seeing fell for it again memes after Trump stomped on Israel's war plans. Pretty funny. How can the woke right when I thought the woke left? Thank you. I'll be here all night. Government subsidized libertarianism is the future, friends. No tax. Billions in corporate welfare afforded by printing money. No schools. No hospitals. Just pyramids built with Saudi oil money on our parents' graves. That's all. That's all. Go ahead, accept it, Goy. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I know Trump means well. He's likely been convinced the only way we're going to stop violent illegal immigration, of which there is actually a problem present in the center, in the core of a big issue that also needs to be, treated like a body, like you have a cancer node inside of a body. Well, you're just throwing the entire body in the fire. So he's likely been convinced the only way we're going to stop it is by going full shock and awe and torturing them like they were 9/11 hijackers and not just mostly people fleeing from cartel violence who've been through hell already, some of whom, and I confirm this for a fact, have barely escaped with their lives after having family killed. All of which is mostly the CIA's fault. That and all the Jews that needed entire 8 balls to write the worst comedy in movies you've ever seen week after week. Trump likely is completely unaware of the bigger picture, and it's easy for me to assume that after watching Elon Musk wrap him around his finger for a time. It's kind of an IQ test if you, as a man significantly younger than Trump but older than 25, can fall for the same line. They sold the Nazis by the exact same faction of people. But if you're more honest and are just trying to sell out enough to become the next George Soros, like George Soros and his uncle did, then it's more grounded. It's not insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect the same results. It will just end up with the liquefaction of a less storied and ultimately less vibrant nation this time. Both empires with extreme military proficiency, but both also highly alcoholic and autistically obsessed with science and modernity as well. Both Protestant, too. People knew way back when, in the 1920s, that space would be the final coping mechanism for mankind. And I'm not trying to take a dump on Jean-Luc Picard and Star Trek Enterprise. It will always be one of my favorite shows, and I love it very, very much. I don't care if it's fully automatic space luxury communism. I don't care if it's like, slightly racist, slightly anthroposophical, got hard-locked races doing hard-locked things. I don't care. Really don't care. It's awesome. It's really well done. And that's a big thing for me, is it done with soul? Is it done with love? Or is it just some cheap gimmick? That's what ticks me off. Ultimately, I can confirm with 100% accuracy that what these camps that we're building are for. And mind you, when you build a concentration camp in 8 days, that place is going to be absolute hell. When you build it around the equator, people are going to die of heat stroke in there. And I already can see that DeSantis has waived the requirement for people to give water to workers outside. So he's already, insane. He worked at Guantanamo Bay. You do know that, right? He tortured people at Guantanamo Bay. He was a JAG officer. He played good cop, and he would go around getting people's weaknesses after lulling them into a false sense of security. So he's like a good liar, and he's also like a devious, evil torture monger. And what he wants to do is he wants to generate so much psychic energy that it is attached to him like an aura, similar to Adolf Hitler. But I don't think he understands how much work was put into that. And yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to deal with that as time goes on. The one thing that would have helped us a lot is if Trump went, "Little meatball Ron's trying to play with the big boys. Go sit down, buddy." But instead, he's using DeSantis to launder billions of dollars through ICE and concentration camps. That's very unfortunate. That's a very, very unfortunate thing. Because God only knows if Trump actually believes that this money is going to be laundered, but it will. It 100% will be laundered. Like how a lot of our police money gets laundered. But to get back into why these camps are being built, I know this. This hit me. It's an epiphany. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I know exactly why these are being built. I can confirm with 100% accuracy that these camps are for torturing people. They're for breaking them. And when they're psychologically broken, they will then be turned into weapons, and those weapons will be turned on the American populace. Just as the children that shot up schools were mentally broken over the internet, groomed, and then given money or guns to go and do what they did. This has happened before. This is how ISIS creates suicide bombers. We're quite literally witnessing the leaning in towards a chaos cult that tortures captives for dark, chthonic gods. And the craziest thing is, none of this is new. It's just been operating in black sites in Argentina, Chile, Romania, Cuba, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Mexico, Africa, etc., etc., etc. It won't be long until it starts spreading into more sensible places. And one of the main reasons is we've all had our morality melted down by programming on the TV and the internet. Hell, our jails and prisons, depending on how many arm tattoos the sheriff has, have already been doing this. They've already been torturing people. They've already been breaking people psychologically, putting them around gang members. It's already been happening. And this is exactly why these issues are popping up. And one can only wonder, because from what people know, it's Fred Trump that was genuinely evil. Donald Trump has coasted off of a tremendous amount of wealth that Fred stole. But he himself isn't nearly as evil. His inner child is alive and well, and he has a lot of empathy. He has a surprising amount of empathy, which will prevent him from being able to do something like start a war with Iran for no good reason. You know? It's a very complicated thing, and I think Trump needs a lot of prayer. So if you can slot Trump into your prayers, please do it, because he needs it. He needs divine protection and guidance. Because it helped last time. It helped with Iran, you know? Alright, y'all. I love all of you. I might not be streaming all that much. I'm going to be working on my project, so take care. Cheers.